Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Tennessee Valley chapter of Wild Ones April public program. We have a free monthly program on the second Monday of the month. I hope you had a chance to check out some of the announcements on the slides that Erin put up. They were scrolling at the beginning. And if you didn't have a chance to check out those exciting things that we have coming up, I hope that you can go to our website, which is tnvalley.wildones.org. You can read how you can volunteer, what other programs we have coming up, our Distinguished Lecturer Series that's in October, plant sales, and lots of other cool things. That's tnvalley, VALLEY.wildones.org. I'm Holly, and I'm with the Public Programs Committee of the Tennessee Valley chapter of Wild Ones. And I'm going to begin by reminding us how we've been focusing on phenology this year, the study of nature's timing. And something about phenology is that it invites us to pay attention to nature. And we have been beginning our programs every month where we are talking about what we've been noticing, what's showing up in our yards, in our gardens. If we've been camping, what are we seeing? And to share that at this time. So let's take a moment to share what you've been noticing. You can place it in the chat. So someone is saying no sound. Can people hear me? Yes? Okay. Fran, thank you for putting the website in the chat. Cool. Nesting bluebirds. Wonderful, Jeanne. Tiger swallowtail butterflies. Oh, blue star, the Arkansas and Montana. Fringe trees in bloom. That's awesome. Yes, yes. The moon's been so much fun to watch, especially after the moon launch. Yes, a monarch. Yes, I saw my first monarch on Saturday. Yes, I saw two ruby-throated hummingbirds also on Saturday, same as Michelle. The Merlin Bird app from Cornell is you're enjoying this. Sounds absolutely same. An owl, whippoorwills. That's awesome, Lena. Mallards. Cool. I've just noticed that the dragonflies are getting really active in my garden. So I've been reminded that I need to keep sticks, certain plants from winter. I shouldn't cut it all back and keep some of these things that the dragonflies can land on so they'll eat my mosquitoes. Fireflies. Awesome. Awesome already. This is really great. Love sharing this. And Dawn, a small gray tree frog jumped on your arm? That's so sweet. Oh, yes, it's really great. Oh, honoring dragonflies for eating the mosquitoes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's a cycle of life I really appreciate. Um, so um as you can see, the huge grasshopper, I saw one too. Um, as you can see, we have been paying attention to nature, and let's see, I'm just wanting to get to taking a moment. Sorry about that. Uh, sorry. something else was popping up. So as we've been paying attention to nature and noticing things, it segues so well in how paying attention cultivates our presence and our participation in being here and being with nature. And so we can cultivate mindfulness in a way that strengthens our capacity to pay attention. And so Tennessee Valley Wild Ones guest speaker tonight is Jeanne Malmgren, who will speak on how we can cultivate mindfulness in nature through paying attention. Jeanne Malmgren has a master's of education and a licensed professional counselor and is the founder of Greenbird Nature Therapy, which is based in the Blue Ridge Mountains of South Carolina. For more than a decade, she's been taking individuals and groups into the natural world with the earth as her co-therapist. In 2019, Jeanne earned a certificate in clinical ecotherapy from the Earth Body Institute in California. And each equinox and solstice, she leads a group silent hike on woodland trails. In her private practice of counseling, Jeanne combines mindfulness and earth-based interventions to give her clients embodied experiences that are therapeutic, safe, and evidence-based. She writes and publishes RX Nature, an online newsletter with thousands of subscribers from around the world. You can find that on Substack. And so Tennessee Valley Wild Ones is pleased to welcome Jeanne tonight, and she's going to lead us in some practices to help us cultivate our ability to pay attention. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat, and we will have a Q&A at the end of her speaking. So thank you very much. I want to welcome Jeanne.
Thank you, Holly. So good to be with you all. I'm sad that we can't be together in person, maybe sitting right next to you in that lovely space, but this is the next best thing. And I just want to thank you all for asking me to share with you, my two favorite topics in the whole world, which are mindfulness and nature. And I would imagine a good percentage of you all feel the same, that we're aligned in that. So this should be fun, hopefully. So let's see. Let me start out with just see if I get my. I am no techno queen, but let's see if I can do this. There we go. Is that good? Can everyone see that? Give me
Yes.
a little thumbs up. Yeah. Okay, great. Wonderful. All right, so that is our topic, attention and mindfulness. And just to introduce me a little bit, to give you a sense of my ecosystem, I live in a very unique place called the Southern Blue Ridge Escarpment, which is also known as the Blue Wall. And I would imagine some of you have heard of it or visited it. It is an incredibly biodiverse region where some ecosystems kind of collide. The Piedmont literally hits this blue wall, which is the beginning of the Southern Blue Ridge, and it makes this incredible change of like 2,000 feet in elevation change within just a few feet. It's like just incredibly rich, and I'm incredibly blessed to live here. This is me actually not in that area. This is, some of you may know this spot. You might recognize this. This is off the Blue Ridge Parkway in North Carolina, and that is probably Tennessee over my behind my right shoulder back in the distance there. This is an Appalachian bald that is at 6,000 some feet elevation, and it's just incredible. It's a 360-degree drink in of incredible wildness. So if you have a chance, I recommend it. It's at mile marker 420 on the Blue Ridge Parkway. So that's me in my happy place. And let's just look for a second at what I'm going to share with you tonight. This is our roster. I'll be talking first a little bit about research, scientific research into this mysterious bond between humans and nature. Then we'll talk about mindfulness and the actual practice of it, what it means, how it relates to nature. Then I'm going to share with you some of my favorite do-it-yourself nature therapy practices that I do on my own, with my clients, with groups, and you will be able to take those out tomorrow and do them yourself. And then I'm going to throw in near the end a mandate for a reciprocal relationship with nature that I just feel is really important. Scattered through my talk here for the next few minutes, we're going to do something experiential that I call your nature place. I'm going to take you to your favorite nature place, and we're going to take that journey four times in four different ways. It'll sort of be a guided meditation each time, really little quick exercise, but I want you to be able to connect with what it feels like to be mindfulness in nature, even if you're sitting inside as I am right now. Okay, so I want to start us off with a quotation that for me expresses why we should care about all these topics. I know most of you do care, but let's just take some wisdom from John O'Donohue, a wonderful poet philosopher, who says, when the mind is festering with trouble or the heart torn, we can find healing among the silence of mountains or fields, or listen to the simple, steadying rhythm of waves. The slowness and stillness gradually takes us over. And then he says, the beauty of nature is often the wisest balm, for it gently relieves and releases the caged mind. All right, we'll hear more about that caged mind in a few minutes. I'll come back to that idea. And now we're going to kick off the very first visit, the first of our four exercises. And I'm going to invite you, if you are comfortable doing this and you're in a place where it feels okay to do that, to close your eyes. Just make yourself comfortable, close your eyes. And I'm going to lead you through this simple exercise of just envisioning a place in nature that you love. It could be your absolute favorite place. It could be one that just sort of pops into mind right now. So let that image come to mind in your mind's eye. And what does it look like? And what do you see? Maybe the colors, the shapes. Is there any movement going on? And then think about your depth of field. What can you see close to you in this scene, and what is far away, maybe on the horizon? Just relaxing with your breath and seeing that place in all of its beauty and glory. Just letting yourself be there for a moment. Okay, and now you can open your eyes. Just a quick visit there. We'll be back, don't worry. And if you'd like, just type one word in the chat to describe the place, your nature spot. Just one word. That's hard. It's harder than you might think. So just type one in. And let's see if I can see the chat while I'm screen sharing. Yes, I can. Grounded, boulder, yes, lake, peaceful, trail. Oh, Deep Woods Creek. Another creek, a brook, yes. Duff. Oh, mountain laurel. Oh, they're about to bloom, aren't they? Poplar. So nice. What a wide variety there. But there's a lot of living things there that you're noticing, and I love that. Great. Okay. So now let's be science nerds for a little bit. I'm going to move us into the science portion of tonight, and I'm going to keep this brief because there's a lot of research out there, steadily growing and blooming body of research about what happens when we walk into nature, how it affects the human organism. So this is going to be a really brief but very specific overview. Okay, let's see. Let me come back here. There we go. All right. So we're just going to go from upper left and go around this quadrant here. So first of all, the things that we can measure most easily are the physiological changes. And if you read the research, it is so cool because these changes happen within 5 to 10 minutes of us walking into a natural space, a living green space, pretty quickly, very quickly. And these effects last for several hours and sometimes even days, depending on which one it is. So these are long lasting effects and very quick. Our blood pressure drops. The HRV stands for heart rate variability. That increases. Now, that doesn't mean that our heart rate increases, but the variability, which means your heart's rhythm and its ability to change and to adapt to stress or to exercise or whatever it needs to do to adapt to your your state of action. So if the heart rate variability increases, that means your heart is more resilient. Cortisol, the stress hormone, drops when we walk into the woods. Cytokines are, if you're not familiar with them, they're actually a kind of protein and they help control our inflammation, our level of inflammation in our body. But if we have too many of them, if they themselves get out of control, it can lead to excess inflammation and even into autoimmune situations. So the cytokines drop when we walk into a natural space. And then phytoncides, anybody heard of those? Those are amazing things. They are essential oils, actually organic compounds that trees and grasses and plants emit to protect themselves from predators, from grazers, from bacteria, viruses. That's sort of their immune system, their defense system. So when they vaporize those into the air, and we are walking in that natural space, say near trees or plants, and we breathe in those compounds, that encourages production in us, in the human animal, what is called our NK cells or natural killer cells. That's part of our immune system that targets tumor growth and virus cells. That's sort of our first line of defense. So phytoncides, we're just breathing those in when we walk into the woods. Thank you very much. Okay, those are some of the physiological benefits that we are gifted with when we go into the natural world. And then there's cognitive and emotional effects. Those are, of course, a little harder to measure, but there is some research that is being done with those, showing that the parts of the brain that help us with focus, that would be the prefrontal cortex, that becomes more resilient and flexible. Our hippocampus in our brain, which is the memory center of the brain, is more functional. Mood and emotion, which are centered in the limbic system, all those parts of the brain are sort of benefiting from us walking into the woods. And then you'll see, I just wanted to add those words at the bottom of this particular slide. Shinrin Yoku, you've probably heard and used that phrase yourself. That's Japanese for forest bathing. Yes. And we do have Japanese forest bathers to thank. Their tradition of forest bathing goes back to the 1980s. So they were the first to start doing research. A lot of the earlier research is based in Japan, in where forest bathing is a national pastime. Biophilia, I'm sure you're familiar with that. That term comes from our good friend E.O. Wilson, the eminent naturalist, and I think he coined this back in the 80s to really mean our innate connection with all living things, all forms of life, all bio. Terraphilia is a newer term. That's from a friend of mine who's also on Substack, Susan Twite, and she sort of expanded the concept of biophilia to say, oh, we can actually feel connection and love for the whole planet, all Terra. Yeah. And also, by the way, if you are a science nerd and you'd like more of this research, there's a lot now. It began really, I think the first place to check would be Florence Williams' book, The Nature Fix. That's about 10 years old now. So she was the first one. She's a journalist, so she really collected a lot of that early research. And of course, there's way more now. But if you haven't read The Nature Fix, I highly recommend that. Okay. And I don't know if you can hear the bird song there. Um, just threw that in for a moment. I'm not sure if that is audible on your end, but just a little bit more physiology that I know as a therapist benefits from being outdoors. Usually we're moving, right? We're walking, we're paddling, maybe biking, but we are in action when we're outdoors. And we know that the nervous system, our vagus nerve and our entire central nervous system really responds in a positive way to what we call bilateral movement, where we are moving both sides of our body, both arms, both legs, and we're doing that in a patterned way or a repetitive way. The nervous system just grooves on bilateral patterned movement. And then, of course, we're being exposed to vitamin D. Presumably, if the sun is out, that's a natural antidepressant, anti inflammatory, and we're just soaking it up. It's helping our body manufacture more of it. We're also soaking in the color green, which, if you know your color spectrum, Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Green is right in the center of the spectrum, the color spectrum. So it signifies balance, and we're feeling that balance when we're taking in a lot of green. And of course, full spectrum light out in nature, which is, of course, way healthier for our eyes than the shortwave blue light that we're soaking up from our screens the rest of our time. And then, of course, orientation to the present. There's so much sensory things that are happening when we're in nature. And this is what links us to mindfulness. So that is kind of a natural segue into. Oh, I forgot about this. This is one more slide I threw in just as sort of the idea of a prescription for vitamin N for nature. That concept comes from Richard Louv, who wrote The Last Child in the Woods. And he also wrote a book called Vitamin N. What a great prescription, right? It's no cost, no side effects, doesn't interact with anything that you're consuming otherwise, and there's no risk of overdose. So, Park RX America is a wonderful website. They are a nonprofit that is trying to convince the medical community to write prescriptions for people to go into nature for, say, 20 minutes a day, 5 times a week. It's a wonderful concept. And on their website, you can even write your own prescription and then take it to your doctor, or you can convince your doctor to write you a prescription. What a forward thinking idea, right? I think we all need that prescription. So now let's consider mindfulness and how it's going to fit into all this. I always want, out of respect, to throw just a little photo of the Buddha into my slides about mindfulness because he was the very first teacher 2,600 years ago who used the word mindfulness and taught his followers this practice of paying attention. So I've just thrown up here some of the better known definitions. If you asked 5 different mindfulness teachers, what is mindfulness, you'd get 5 different descriptions, but they'd all be related in a way. So the most common and long-term one that's been around for a long time is this first one, that mindfulness is paying attention 3 ways: on purpose, in the present moment, and without judgment, non-judgmentally, right? 3 ways paying attention. But you could also say that it's a clear and kind attention. I like the kind part to our inner and outer experience of being alive. And it's the capacity to, as a skill, it's the capacity to bring something, anything, to the forefront of our awareness and observe it fully, completely. Okay. So now let's consider how it fits in with connecting with nature, because that's really the core of it. And I want to first say, why do we need this practice? This is one of my favorite things to kind of share. This is actually the first line of a short story by James Joyce, the British author, about this character named Mr. Duffy, who lived a short distance from his body. It's what we call disembodied in my line of work. It's dissociated. It's sort of running on automatic. We're just kind of not home. And that's because our obviously our attention is so scattered and so pulled out of us that it's very hard for us to keep our head on our shoulders. And here's my little guy with the exploding brain. I always like to include him because we can all we've all had a day like this, right? And this is really the 21st century brain. Bless us. I mean, it is so hard to practice mindfulness when we are called to multitask and do two, three things at once and have our focus going a million different directions. And our brains are so overstimulated by all the digital consumption that we're doing many hours a day. Our brains are sleep deprived because we're online so much. And our brains, sadly, here's the nutritional note, our brains are fueled by CATS. This is an acronym, which I usually do this as a quiz. Um, let's just put into the chat if you can figure out what CATS, each one of those things. S is usually the hard one. C is pretty obvious, what fuels us, what keeps us awake. Anybody? Chaos, well, yes. Caffeine, there we go. Good, Angela. All right, what's the A? Technology, yes. A. Anxiety is the result, but what is the thing we're consuming? Adrenaline, that's a result. What are we drinking? Yes, alcohol. Yep, there you go. Okay. T, I'll just tell you for to move us along. T is tobacco. Yes, yes, good, Angela. Okay. All right, S is the tricky one. Anybody know? Screen stimulants, yes, but there's something that we ingest. Sugar. Yes, ma'am, Jacqueline. It definitely has an effect on our brain. So, what is the antidote for all this, and how can we unexplode our poor brains? Well, obviously, that's why we're here tonight. Two things in combination, mindfulness and nature. Okay, let me get out of the chat because it won't let me advance. Hold on here. Oh, okay. All right, mindfulness and nature. What happens when we practice mindfulness in nature? What are we gaining? What are we practicing? So the first thing is a sense of place, which I know is sort of your theme, right, for this year for Wild Ones, Tennessee Valley. Proprioception is that sense of where our body is in space. Yeah, sort of our sense of where I am right now. And that is in a lot of ways easier when we're in nature. And we're using all five senses. I mean, they're all engaged. It's such a rich experience. Just absolutely awake. And then we have a sense of belonging if we spend enough time in nature, that we are not separate from whatever ecosystem we're walking through. We're part of something larger. We're just one of the many, many, many living beings that are inhabiting that space at that time. So that helps us understand interdependence when we can see examples of that in nature and we can see impermanence everywhere we look. So those two really kind of big concepts are right there for us. Nature is the teacher. And then also we're grounded in the four elements. We can see earth and air and fire and water. It's all right there. Okay, so this leads us into our second visit to your nature place. The first time when we did it earlier, I had you just look around, right, and take it in visually. This time we're going to expand that and we're going to use the rest of your senses, right? So once again, I'll just invite you to get comfortable. Close your eyes if that feels right and appropriate to do. It helps you kind of envision this place if your eyes are closed. If you don't want to close your eyes, by the way, you can just sort of soften your gaze and look down to the floor. Simplify your gaze. All right. So take yourself back to that beautiful nature spot that you just love. that you feel so connected with. And I want you to notice what you can hear near to you, and maybe if there's a sound far away that you can hear. And then what can you smell? Is there anything floating on the air, however subtle it might be? Is there some sort of fragrance that's here in this place? And then to use our sense of touch, notice air brushing your skin, any exposed skin, your face, maybe your arms, your hands. Is the air warm, cool? And then maybe, are there any other textures? If you like, you can imagine yourself touching the bark of a tree, picking up a leaf or a stone, maybe putting your hand into water. Anything around you that has some sort of a texture that you can just revel in what it feels like to touch it. So you're in this place and all senses are awakened: hearing, smelling, touch. Sometimes when we do this in the woods for taste, we even put our tongues out. And I know most of us are not outside, but maybe if you are, you can put your tongue out. No one can see. I can't see. And just see if you can taste anything in the air. And if you practice this later outside, it's kind of fun to do that. Okay, so I hope that helped you feel even more present in your nature place, your favorite spot. And I just want to talk now about some of the benefits that come from being present and having a sense of place, sense of presence. And you can see that it's sort of when we connect with a place, it affects us on all these levels. We'll have ease in the body, and we saw all those physiological symptoms, but overall it'll just be a sense of ease. And the mind can kind of relax and become spacious and open. And our nervous system responds. Most people can notice a sense of calm when they take time to slow down in nature. Um, all of this can lead to what the beautiful experience of awe. And again, Florence Williams, the Nature Fix, I kind of stole this from her, but she uses an acronym for awe, like an actual practice of cultivating awe. So the A is attention, paying attention. There's the mindfulness, right? And then waiting, pausing for a breath or two. And then letting that breath out, exhale, and just let that ease expand all through your body. Kind of the components of awe there. And this picture, by the way, is one of my offices. I like to say that my office is in the woods, and I don't have just one office because I take my clients to many different places, depending on the weather, depending on conditions. This particular place is this incredible stream that sluices over rocks in a valley, and it's only about 10 minutes from my home. I can be there really quickly. And my client and I have to walk a ways to get to this spot. So we just walk along the water and then we sit on those flat rocks there you see on the left. Pretty incredible place. And you can imagine that those big, huge boulders spur some conversation about, obstacles in their life and the sort of power of water to wear down rock. There's so many metaphors in nature that we can use. All right, now we're going to move into another segment. In this part of the talk, I just want to share with you some of my favorite nature therapy exercises. And these are things that you'll be able to do by yourself, with a partner, or maybe in a group of friends out in the woods. I do them all the time with my clients and at my own place, my own nature trail. These are all ways to enrich and deepen all these experiences here, the ease, the spaciousness, the sense of presence, and the awe. Okay. So this is actually one of my other offices. This is a walking trail in the South Carolina Botanical Garden, which is on the campus of Clemson University, near where I live. They have different ecosystems in the botanical garden, and this particular one is the Mountain Cove area. It's just a lovely place to walk. All right, so the first nature therapy practice I want to share is what I call inner outer landscape. Um, this one I prefer to do walking in a natural area. You can see that I've taken off my shoes there so I can really ground in earth with the earth. But you could certainly do this sitting if you prefer, or maybe floating on some water. But the idea is that you're going to shift your mindful attention back and forth from your inner landscape, which is what's going on inside of you, inside of the human organism that is you. So that would be physical sensations. If you're walking, of course, it'll be the sensations of moving, the feet moving and the legs moving. Um, it would also be whatever emotions are inside of you that you can notice, and maybe the thoughts that are floating around in this movie screen here, as I like to call it. Um, and then you would shift, you would focus on that for, it doesn't really matter, a minute, 2 minutes, and then you would shift your attention to the outer landscape around you, just as we did before, where you're using all your senses to really experience and drink in your surroundings. And so it's a nice fluid back and forth practice of mindfulness from the inner to the outer. And you can do that, of course, for as long as you like. There's no rules. There's no set time limit. Okay. And the next one is what I call breathe with other beings. Of course, when we go into a natural area, we are sharing that space with the beings that live there. And they're all breathing. This is one thing that we can share in common. Even if our bodies look different, our life experience looks different, we are all breathing in different ways, using different mechanisms, different patterns, but we're all breathing. That is what keeps us tethered, keeps us alive. So this one I like to do sitting. I like to choose a spot somewhere where I'm surrounded with living things and I can hear living things. And again, any amount of time is fine. I don't, I don't make rules about that. However long it feels good to sit there and have the sense that you are breathing and that all the beings around you are breathing. The breath is a traditional focus of attention during a lot of mindfulness practices. So it's very nice to feel the breath coming and going in your own body, and then imagine it coming and going from the trees, or from a goose, or from a bird that is winging past, or an insect that just crawled onto your foot, or the water beings nearby that are breathing in a completely different way. It is such a lovely way to connect with life around you. All right. And then this one, small to vast, more bird song. Huh, didn't expect that. Um, Small to vast actually combines two practices. One I call close gaze, and the other one is sky gaze. Close gaze, it's exactly what it sounds like. You're looking at something tiny, something very detailed, and then you're shifting your gaze to the sky or something large. It could be the top of a tree. It could be anything that shifts your focus from very close up to very far away. And again, it's that fluid practice of your mindfulness moving back and forth and back and forth. Um, the close gaze you can do by itself. If you prefer, you can just sit and really connect with a fiddlehead, or you can do the sky gaze by itself. And the sky gaze actually is wonderful to do at the daytime or at night, appreciating the night sky. Okay. Now, one more. This is my actual favorite form of nature therapy. I don't know if y'all can hear. Can y'all tell me if you can hear that bird song? I don't know what it's doing in here. Sorry if it's too loud. Okay. Um, so nature art is, I mean, you could interpret that in many, many ways. What I like to do is lead a group in creating what we call mandalas, which are usually circular, right? This particular mandala here, we created last fall. This is a group of therapists that I was doing a professional training with, teaching them how to be nature therapists. And they had a great time because they got to play in the woods while they were learning, earning professional training credits. And we finished the workshop by creating this really nice mandala, just out of what we found on the ground. That's part of the practice. Um, there's parts of the mandala practice. Let's see, why can't I advance here? I'm not sure what's going on. Hold on just a second. Let me see. Okay, there we go. Well, I missed a slide. Let me go back. Here we go. All right. So, mandala making is an incredibly rich mindfulness practice because you're hands-on, very sensory. You're picking up all these different natural objects in the woods and you're choosing them and you're placing them and you're putting them in a pattern and you're working with the colors and the shapes. It's so sensory. And if you're doing it alone as a solo practice, it can be very meditative, very quiet, very reflective. And in a group, it's so much fun because it's cooperative, it's a community creation. And I don't tell groups how to do it. I don't, I ask them to just sort of do it in a quiet, meditative way. So they're not directing each other. It's just sort of spontaneously happening that they're creating this incredible piece of art. And then, of course, it's a lesson in impermanence because nature's going to reclaim that mandala in short order. So it's teaching us how to let go. So it's wonderful for grief work, for coming to terms with a loss of any kind. Okay, this is just a sweet little group of Girl Scouts and their troop leaders. It was a small group, so they made a small mandala there in the mountains. I just wanted you to see the possibilities of this. This is an actual professional guy, James Brunt in England. He used to have a website, but I think it's non-functional, but you can find him on social media. And he posts these incredible photos of these works of art that he creates that are just completely temporary, completely ephemeral. Amazing. Okay, time for us to visit your nature spot again. This is visit number 3 of 4. So make yourself comfortable again. Now we're going to experience this place this time using your emotions. We used our sensory input before, and this time, as you close your eyes and take yourself there, I want you to just notice what you're feeling. Are there pleasant emotions, unpleasant, neutral? Just watch those feeling states kind of flow in and flow out as you just enjoy being in this beautiful place. Okay. And here's a nice quote from Barry Lopez about sense of place and how we connect with place. He says the key, I think, is to become vulnerable to a place. If you open yourself up, you can build intimacy with the place. Out of such intimacy may come a sense of belonging and a sense of not being isolated in the universe. That's so nice. He just encapsulates it all right there. Okay. Now, speaking of intimacy, here is my pitch for the idea of developing a reciprocal relationship with Earth. Okay. I think this is a really important concept, and I'm sure that most of you already endorse this and feel this, but I just want to throw it into the ring that, we receive so much from nature. There's all these benefits that we've been talking about for the last half hour. I mean, it's just incredible what nature gives us. So I think we need to give back. And that's a much richer relationship when it's a two-way give and take. And of course, we know the earth is alive and needs us as much as we need her, because if we don't take care of the earth, who will? Yes. And that's just food for thought. What else might be important about the idea of a reciprocal relationship with nature? And of course, there's so many ways to give back to nature. I'm just going to share a few of what I do. This one's pretty obvious, right? I live on a rural country road that leads to a very popular mountain waterfall. And so especially in the summer, there's a lot of traffic and people driving on their way to and from the waterfall. And they seem to have a lot of trash that they don't want to keep in their car. So I go out about once a month, my husband and I, and we clean it up. And it feels good. And I think Holly mentioned the silent hikes. This isn't specifically giving to the earth, but I feel that when I lead people on these hikes 4 times a year, on the equinoxes and the solstices, that that engenders love for the earth in those people. So um, I feel that I'm passing it on at that point. And this is a program that is in volunteer program in South Carolina and Georgia, and I looked it up. I think there's a similar one in Tennessee. Um, I'm not sure I think it's called something different in Tennessee, but it's basically taking the training, and then you are a volunteer who monthly chooses a stream. This one is just on my land, right behind my house. And we measure things like temperature of the water, clarity, pH, the bacteria level, dissolved oxygen. What I'm doing with this tube right here is checking the turbidity or the clarity of the water, which tells us a lot about the quality. And then we download our data to a website that's managed by Department of Health, or is it DNR? I think it's Department of Health. And if there's any red flags, anything that's not looking good of the water quality, they will come out and inspect and see if they can figure out what to do. So it's just taking care of a stream. Okay, just a nice quote here from our friend Wendell Berry, right? Who says the care of the earth is our most ancient and most worthy, and after all, our most pleasing responsibility. To cherish what remains of it, to foster its renewal, is our only legitimate hope. So he's on the bandwagon for reciprocity as well. Okay. Now, I just want to real quickly, we're getting near the end, so I want to real quickly give a nod to how we can connect with nature when we're indoors, because there are times when we can't be outdoors, right? We might have mobility issues or medical problems that are keeping us, making it hard just to get outside. We might have allergies, especially this time of year. Maybe the weather's bad. It's hot, it's cold, it's raining, it's snowing, it's icy. Or maybe we just don't have time. Our lives are so crazy and busy that we can't get out as much as we want to. So, here are my ideas for bringing nature indoors, just as a supplement. You can have art, photos, right, of natural scenes. You can have green plants. You can have a nature soundtrack going with bird song. I don't mean music, I just mean bird song or the sound of water flowing. Bird feeders, right? Of course. Screensavers, yes, on your laptop, on your phone. Every time you pick up your phone, you're seeing a natural scene. How wonderful. And then you can collect things from nature and bring them inside and have a basket of nature treasures or what I call an earth altar. And let me show you mine. Um, you can see it's just things like bird nest, interesting rocks, feathers, pine cone, little turtle shell, just anything I find that wants to come home with me. But it's a lovely way to sort of, every time I walk past this nature altar, it sort of draws my attention and I can just, for that moment, be connected. All right. So I'm going to wrap us up here in just a minute, but we have to take one more visit to your favorite nature spot, and we're going to kind of coalesce everything right now. So I'll ask you to close your eyes one more time. You get to go back to that beautiful place again. And I want to see if you can summon up the image of someone who's been integral in your life in teaching you to love nature. Maybe it was a grandparent or a parent or a caregiver or a teacher, someone who took you outside and started showing you the wonders of nature when you were little. Or it might be someone in the present. It could be a friend or a partner, your favorite person to go out in the woods with now. Just think of someone who's dear to you in terms of being a nature companion. And once you have that person in mind, I want you to place them right beside you here in your nature place. It might be that you're standing or sitting side by side, just both of you kind of drinking in this beautiful place, using your senses, both of you in a state of awe, state of complete mindful awareness and presence. And maybe your nature companion says something or does something or points to something that they want you to see and notice. Just let whatever needs to happen happen. And finally, just notice how it feels to be in this beloved place with this beloved person, your nature partner, your companion. And just feel all of that feeling right now in this present moment and in this place that you care about. And when you are ready, you can open your eyes slowly, come back into our shared space. Yes. So I want to thank you all for sticking with me through all of this. And I want to close us out with one last quote that I hope and I think will resonate with all of us. And it comes from Ada Limon. She says, I always think one of the easiest ways to love the earth is to remember that you'll have to leave it at some point. Oh, straight to the heart. Yeah. All right. So this is how to reach me. Um, I just want to let you know a couple things on my website, which you see there. There is a short film. If you'll go to the nature therapy page on the website, there's a short 5-minute film where you'll see some of the in action, some of the nature therapy exercises that we did tonight, plus some other ones. And then in RX Nature, in the newsletter, there are 20, I think, or 25 do-it-yourself DIY nature therapy practices that are collected there um, in the archives. So if you either just come and read the newsletter or subscribe, which I hope you will, you'll have access to all of those and you can try them all out. And I hope you will. And I hope this has all resonated with you and your values and your heart and your love of nature as well as mine. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for having me. And I will stop sharing and go back to Holly.
Thank you, Jeanne. Yeah, look at the hearts. Yes, and prayer hands. Yes. Thank you so much. It just feels so deep and enriching.
Mm.
And I know for me to have spent some time with my spot guided by you, how lovely. And to bring some of the people who have taken me to this special place of nature in a deeper way, to bring them to that spot that was really profound. And I want to allow some time for some questions. Um, if you have any questions for Jeanne that have risen, comments, put them in the chat. You're, I
You know, I
will.
might add, Holly, that I'm so happy you said that about the sense of bringing that person into your nature spot with you. Um, Sometimes when I do this with groups, people are in tears because, you know, a grandma shows up or somebody meaningful that they haven't maybe thought about for a long time. And you can do this practice yourself. You can go back to that spot anytime and put yourself in there again and bring that person back if you like, or just, you know, appreciate the spot yourself. I mean, I'm all about DIY and being able to take these practices with you.
Oh, it definitely cultivates that reciprocity. And um, and I was also feeling a lot of gratitude for this chapter and how it cultivates our relationship to nature and um, the hikes and putting our hands in the soil, getting to know many of the areas of this region and helping to restore it ecologically. I just have so much gratitude for the founders of this chapter and the people who have been here throughout. It's a very significant effort, and what you have spoken to, I think, has been resonating through the heartbeat of the Tennessee Valley chapter of Wild Ones for a long time, and I love to give voice to that. Um, I know with our phonology wheels, we have been doing some art mandalas. I was wondering if there's anybody who would like to share anything about their art practices through the last few months. We have a question from Kathy. Thank you, Jeanne. Could you say a word or two about the difference between hiking solo and a silent hike that you lead?
Mm, okay. Thank you, Kathy. Good question. Kathy is a friend of mine who leads Sierra Club hikes. She's a trip leader, so she knows about leading groups. Well, let's see. I think when you're walking solo, you're obviously silent. It's funny because I've had people say to me, why would I want to go on a silent hike with a group? Because I can just go silently by myself. Um, which is true. But I usually, at the beginning of a silent hike, I will, especially if I have new people in the group that time who've not done it before, I will explain that it's a very singular and very precious, I think, experience to be in community with other humans, but not somehow you're in your own separateness, your own capsule of quiet, sort of, but you're in a community and you have that sense of shared experience, but you're also at the same time having an individual experience. It's very unusual. And I think when you're walking alone, you have the silence, and maybe it's even easier to be mindful. You're not trying to, not having to worry about running into the person ahead of you or something. You can just sink into your mindfulness, but you don't have that sense of community that you have in a group. I'm sure we've all been on group hikes where there's a lot of chatter, there's a lot of fun and joking and laughing and pointing out things to each other, and that's a different kind of connection. But when you're silent together, it's dare I say, it feels sacred. It really does to me. And it must to us, some others, because I have some people I've been doing these hikes for, I think, 13 years, 4 times a year for 13 years. And I have people who just had coming every single time. So I think that sense of being silent in community is very profound. Yeah, Fran says balancing solo hikes and silent communal hikes. Yes, Fran. Yeah. They're both wonderful, right? They both have something to offer.
I have a question, Jean. There was a some of the Harvard research on nature-based interventions, mindfulness interventions, have shown that not only do, do the interventions increase our capacity for compassion and connection and lower anxiety, it can also increase grief and some
Mhm.
of the ecological grief. And I'm wondering, um, I know you're really connected. I'm wondering if you can share about how we might be able to hold that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a deep question, Holly. Um, it reminds me of the last hike that I did just recently on the spring equinox. I found a trail that was at the botanical garden that I mentioned in Clemson, which is, a lot of that garden is very manicured and well kept. But there's a trail that kind of leaves that property and weaves around through a neighborhood behind the garden. So we went on that trail. Someone had snuck me back there. And it's behind this old neighborhood in Clemson that dates back to the 70s when people did not know that English ivy is an invasive. And these houses are up on a hill, so they're worried about erosion. I know their backyards are cliffs, and they planted ivy, and now it's come down into this natural area where there's a stream and there's these beautiful tall trees, and the ivy's just choking everything. So we walked through that in silence, and I felt the grief, yes. And I said something to the group about it before we started. I said, "You're going to see an example of what happens, when things get out of hand. And there's just no stopping it. I mean, it's just, there's no way they could get it all out of there. Um, but we see it in various ways. That's just one small little neighborhood. But yeah, I mean, we've also had several hikes, silent hikes over the past year and a half since Hurricane Helene came through, where we've encountered so much damage, and my own nature trail has just been devastated, and we're still in the process of kind of trying to bring it back. Um, it's always there. That grief is there and just mixed with the sense of the beauty that still tries to come through and the life that is still pushing its way up and out. Those things, being just coexisting, it's a lot to feel.
Yes, what a very pertinent example. I think about the whack-a-mole in each of us can even like take one little area in our spaces and start to identify one
Yeah.
plant, or one thing, and we do. And
Mm.
thank you for speaking. It it needs to be here, the grief, and
Yeah. Yeah.
also the noticing and note like the life that's emerging.
It's the reciprocity, right? It's the walking through these places that we love and this earth that we love and seeing the struggle. And, it's like sitting with a friend who is suffering in some way. You mentioned compassion. So, that's one of the great balms for grief is compassion. What else can we can we meet grief with than compassion and presence, just mindful presence of being present with it, witnessing, right?
Yes.
Mm.
Um, Angela has volunteered, and I'm happy that she has to share some of her phonology wheels. She's an artist, and are you still able to? Yes, Angela?
Yes, yes. I had to run and get them. Um, if there's no more questions for Jeanne, or maybe there will be, but just want to make sure. We at the beginning of January when we started our phonology, well, I presented several templates, that were different interpretations of phonology wheels. So this is one I'm doing on the moon.
Oh,
Um, I'm just sort of trying to make sure that I pay attention to the moon every month, or when I see the moon, when I don't see the moon, what shape it is it waxing, waning, learn about it. I have not yet processed what it's going to look like as far as like the fact that we had astronauts circumnavigate the moon and saw the dark side. But this is an example of,
Oh,
and I'm using this sort of nesting circle, hand-drawn nesting circle templates that just felt right. And it involves more than like this is a memory with someone I love whom I'm also experiencing some grief with, and then moments where I see it in the day and then to the nights. And then I started another one. Um, and this is what it looks like. So it's more that pie shape phonology wheel if you are familiar with it, but I am capturing colors and mostly moving towards blooming in these sort of horizontal bands. And then these are actually compositions, mini watercolor compositions of birds I'm seeing in my yard. We'll kind of zoom in.
wow. Whoa.
Yeah, I'm really excited. You can see you might recognize that this is like a tufted a towhee, and then um I saw a northern flicker and yellow rump or yellow side. Yeah, there's a yellow and a red. There's northern flicker. This has been visiting my yard every year. So I saw it in January. I haven't seen it since, but I'm excited about this one. I think once it's going to be kind of wild and colorful, but it's a little crazy. And then trying to track it on the outside so I remember what all I'm tracking. But
Magnificent.
excited to see what people are working on. We provided templates that were flower shaped. So people could work in the shape of a coreopsis flower or a sunflower. Oh, good. Somebody's put in our website, there are resources on how to locate the phenology wheel templates that we created for this, and then also just kind of ways that you can develop. You can still do phenology wheel even if you're starting now, or if you've skipped some months. It's really about that practice of developing a regular time that you're focusing on some aspect, or maybe you sit in one time every month and capture what happens in your sit spot, or who comes to visit you in your sit spot. Just again, tying it back into Jeanne's beautiful layered experience that we just had. So
Yes, thank you so much. And it reminds me of just noticing, someone had mentioned the Arkansas Blue Star, the Amsonia, and just seeing the the blue hue that that's showing up during this time in spring, and how, just capturing that in the phonology as the color hue. I love it. That's really great. Yes, so
thank you. Yeah, I'm excited about that. Actually, I have some blooming now. It's one of my favorite times of my garden. The Columbine and the Arkansas Blue Star. I also think it's going to help me understand. I'm trying to focus on the flowers that I feel like are most productive, but there's been a lot of things that creep in there.
yeah, so Jean, as you can see, this is such a supportive practice for our focus all the time, but intentionally this year of really paying attention and sharing together what we're noticing. And so I'm just so grateful for your generosity of your time and sharing your resources and your newsletter so that we can DIY in these nature practices. And as a teacher, I'd say each one teach one, which that DIY is such a way of each of us teaching someone and connecting to others.
I love your what's really hitting me is your celebratory all of you, your celebratory feeling of sharing the beauty with each other and sharing the discoveries and what we're noticing. I mean, it's just, and that you start your meetings that way. What's everyone noticing? I'm going to steal that. That is just
Yeah,
lovely.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe all share
Yeah.
that.
Mm.
Yeah, the curiosity. I heard that curiosity and shame cannot coexist.
Yeah.
That when we bring curiosity into the moment, it shifts our way of being and our attention. And so I think that
Yeah.
can help guide us. Um, are there any other questions or before we end tonight? Fran says, y'all make me so happy.
That's so sweet. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed being with you all. Great group of nature lovers. Carry on.
Thank you. And we will be posting a link to the YouTube recording, and it'll be on our chapter's YouTube channel. And Jean, you're welcome to share it. And we will continue to practice, and we might be able to integrate this in some of our hikes and some of
Mm.
the other gatherings that we have. And now we have some shared language. So thank you so much. And I hope that everybody has a wonderful month. In May, we are going to be sharing our Seeds for Education talk and talking about what's been happening. And so Angela is going to be there at the Red Bank Community Center to share with the other recipients and what they've been doing over the year.
Yes, really excited about that. We have Holly Martin from who's been working on a pollinator garden up at Normal Park Upper, who's going to be presenting with her daughter. Can I just put a plug that if you know any librarians in public schools or in the private schools or in libraries, we had purchased books for donation from the Doug Ptolemy lecture last year. And we've been able to distribute out to some people, but not everybody. So we're going to have the books there if there's a librarian. So if you have somebody in your network you know as a librarian, and they can always send us an email and just ask us if there's any questions.
Great. Yes. And that will also be in the newsletter too. And so if anyone has any follow-up questions, you're welcome to contact me later, and or else we will see each other in May. So thank you again, Jeanne. Really appreciate this, and I'll say good night to everybody.
Thank you. Take care.